Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Leading on Purpose. My name is Grace Makwaza, and it is an absolute honor to be sitting here with someone who I consider a role model for our generation. Leading on Purpose is a series that discusses leadership and the impact of the SDGs in our time. So today we're going to be talking about policy and AI. What should the African response be in this time? I'm sitting here with Dr. Katindi Sivi, and she will tell you more about herself. Ma'am, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us in your home. And let's just kickstart this conversation with me just asking you, do you believe that education from USIU has taken new places?
I certainly do believe so. And I'll just tell you that I did my PhD in the US.
Okay.
And just logistically, it was much easier because USIU is registered in the US. And so having a degree from USIU has made it absolutely easy for me to get enrollment. And I didn't have to have my certificates verified because it came from a credible institution that they could vouch for. So that's number one. But number two, I think, I'll give you a story. When I went to college, I did international relations for my first degree. And when I graduated, I went into a research institute, an economic research institute, never done economics. And right there, I had a job to do. But because how USIU taught us to study, the presentations we did, the research we did in school, the multicultural environment, the, ability to just, first of all, even have subjects outside your core area taught to you, made it so easy for me to jump in and to just really start working. And so even despite the fact that it was really outside my school, and the scope of work or degree that I had done, it was very easy because it really gave me the power to learn. Obviously, the confidence that is built in you and so forth, that it was amazing. So, and my first TOR was actually to do presentations in about 350 workshops around the country.
Oh my goodness.
And I cannot tell you how grateful I was to have done those presentations because they enable you to stand before different audiences, whether at the local level or at executive levels, and be able to just have conversations and speak quite boldly. And that really got me through a lot. So when peers from other universities struggled, I aced it. So I was grateful for it. Does take you places. Obviously, having, again, a degree from USIU was interesting for me because when we looked at our peers in, let's say, public university, a lot of them had delayed graduation because they were home so often because of the, riots and so forth. So actually, the other thing is that I was able to finish my degree in 2.5 years because I was able to do 5 courses because of the GDP, but also I wanted to finish quickly. So I could fast track my undergrad and start working early. And so in that sense, by the time my peers were finishing, which was maybe a year later, I was already earning. So in many ways, it does take you places in as far as being able to access different opportunities. Also, you have an alumni out there that is very welcoming and able to open doors for me. For you, I wasn't able to meet one immediately, but as I went on my career, I was able to connect with a few of them.
I like the fact that you spoke about the fact that you pivoted after graduating. There are so many of my peers who are afraid of that because even I, as a senior in international relations, knowing that there's something else out there beyond my degree. It's a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, I know that there's opportunity to it. What would you say to someone who's afraid of taking that risk and just changing their own trajectory?
You see, the world is very interesting right now. And actually, one of the discussions I think higher education must have is the fact that you cannot, when you have a pipeline sort of like education, and a pipeline education is where you just have similar subjects and courses, and so you have an expertise in one thing. But the world is not built that way. The world is built to intersect. So different things intersect. Science intersects with history and with law and with artificial intelligence, and so you shouldn't be afraid, because the education you receive, and part of why I like USIU is because in undergrad, at least the first 1 year, you try everything so that you have a sense of that basic, can I say, proficiency in a lot of these things. And the reason why they tell you on graduation day that we have given you the power to do anything that appertains is because they have readied you to be able to have a muscle to actually pretty much apply what you have learned in different places. And so I guess the reason why people find it hard to pivot to other things is because, particularly if you went through an education where you had to cram.
Yes.
So you're afraid to try because you never learned. Learning is really saying, I don't know. Learning is being open to saying, okay, how do you do this? Learning is saying, okay, how can my science degree apply to an arts type of environment? And so it is about courage. It's about being innovative and imaginative, but also be open to say, I don't know, and to ask more questions. So because when you approach learning as giving solutions and not asking questions, then that's where the problem is, because then you feel intimidated that you don't have the answer and the correct answer to these things. So learning is about, trial and error. It's about asking questions. It's about making mistakes. And when you open yourself to that, then you won't be afraid to be able to take on anything. Yeah.
I read a book at some point about women who failed, not women who succeeded. And in the beginning, the author wrote that the biggest struggle for most women is admitting failure.
Yeah.
And that is what's going to lead me to my next question for you, is that what has been the thing that has kept you focused even in times of failure?
Yeah. So interestingly, I'll give you two stories. One is a story of my father. He grew up in poverty, but he worked very hard. And I saw a man who had a lot of resilience. And one day he got fired from his job. And he had been a dedicated worker. And I saw my father fall apart, but not give up. Fall apart in the sense that he felt unfairly treated. But then he did everything he could to take his two children. We were four, but the two of us were in a private school, and do everything it could, including working for a friend, so that he could get our school fees paid. And what I learned early on is that when you fail, you can actually rise. And that was an important lesson, because a lot of times, if you have never seen failure and that exemplified in a way that somebody fails and rises to an even better position, it can make you feel like failure is the end of the world. So I saw my father then leave a job he had worked so hard for such a long time, almost 20 years, but eventually got like one of the most prestigious jobs, working in the national airline services, so providing food for all the aircraft as a chef, and eventually working abroad in different countries as a chef. And so hadn't he left that job, he would have slaved for such a long time. So sometimes we never see and process failure as the opportunity to rise even higher. So that was a good lesson. The second one, I think, was, so when I transitioned to high school, I was in a rural boarding school in primary, small school. So you are conditioned to be the star. Like you pass exams.
You are number one.
You never have competition. And then I went to a national school, and nobody really centered my thinking and told me that, look, you have come to a school where the entire country, the best minds are in this school. And so my first position was like 111 out of 200.
Oh my God.
And also because we were conditioned to think that success is being number one. I never recovered. And when I went home, what I had didn't help, because then I was made to feel like I am a failure for life. And so I went through high school. Now I recognize that I think I was depressed for 4 years because I never even applied myself. Like I loved singing, I loved, the arts, but I coiled back and I never went out to be that girl who could have become so much more in high school, because there wasn't that voice to tell me, first of all, that, look, you actually didn't fail. And now looking back, actually one day they pinned our results on the notice board.
Oh my God.
And what I realized is, like, the person who was number 50, for example, and myself who's number 100 and something, there was such a small difference. And then, so the issue wasn't really the marks. The issue was the fact that you're many people who are brilliant and have come together and really think about all the other kids in the whole country.
Yeah.
And later on when I left, so I never studied for my fourth form exam because in my mind, I had failed. And so to have gotten a B afterwards, like without reading, I said, had somebody just mentioned to me, I'd have easily gotten an A. But so I believe in, but this is what happened. That was bad in that sense, but it was good for me because it enabled me to get out of the sense that, there's a pride that comes with being
number one.
Yes. So that was quickly shed off, and I became more sensitive and I guess humble to the fact that we are all learning. And so when I passed, because I got the grades to go to uni, I then told myself, I guess no one will ever put me down again. But the lesson there was, look, being good in academics is not the only thing, that you need to build character. And that was a moment for me to get that character development and to be much more, can I say, caring for people who are not considered doing well and stuff like that. So that was an interesting one. And so after that, I just lived my life. And I think it's important to be able to model failure. Yeah. I say that's important. So another story, I love stories.
It's okay.
My kids, I have two lovely girls. And I observed them one time during COVID. And they were doing online classes. And so they had a spelling bee. And my daughter's team lost because they misspelled. And I watched these miniatures wailing like somebody had died because they were not number one. And I just sat my daughter down and I asked her, so why does somebody have to lose for you to win? And I remember having a discussion about, honestly, it was just like one hard word that you didn't get. You guys did really well. And I began to realize that if we don't model failure as a path to success, because life is about more failures than successes.
It is.
No wonder we are having a lot of dysfunction with young people because a lot of things come easy and the just failing once becomes such a crisis that people maybe unfortunately commit suicide or can never rise up to see something different. And it's important. And I remember saying to the teacher in my kids' school, we need to start having simulations about challenging kids and modeling failure so that it becomes a part of their psyche as well. Yeah.
That is wonderful. I don't think I've gotten an answer about failure. So it hit home.
Yes.
It really hit home. Now, I want to ask you about being a creative intellectual, because you said you wish you could have applied yourself in singing and all these other things, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people who are creative intellectuals find themselves at the receiving end of jealousy, even as their careers progress. I've met some of the smartest people who would want to sing, but they want to keep downplaying their abilities, because it almost feels like the corporate world is created as this, I want to say, clinical place where you should just be focused on all that. How do you navigate being at the receiving end of jealousy for your abilities? And also, how do you make sure you maintain progress in the other aspects of your life that are not necessarily academic?
So, first of all, it came with failure. And it came with accepting myself. And I think for a lot of women, there's a factor of age that comes with that realization. But then you realize that I've wasted a lot of time trying to impress people. So first of all, it comes from how we grew up. And women have always been burdened with good behavior. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think it is at the expense of young men can get away with some things, but you as a woman cannot.
Yes.
And I think we have this undue burden for women then being carriers of morality in society. And I think society, everyone has an obligation to carry morality.
Yeah.
And so you're conditioned a certain way. And for us who are older, of course, than you, our time was worse, but maybe our parents' time was even, much worse than ours, where women had to endure certain things for the sake of society. So I grew up, and the only success was you have to study. And in fact, if you sang or if you were you were artsy, you were, you were condemned loudly. And so you keep that hidden and you never even explore that at all. So you're growing up in a time where that has really opened up, and people acknowledge that actually there are many forms of intelligences, and it's not just book intelligence. So part of it is, and then moving on with life, being very, like in my 20s and 30s, I was such a serious woman. Even in my teens, by the time I'm doing a degree in 2.5 years, it means I never did anything else outside books and studying. So you miss a part of your life that is so fundamental. And now the opposite is that you people, by the time you're 30, 40, you were so deprived of that joy that now you overindulge. And what I tell young people is enjoy yourself, but don't also overdo it, because don't eat your fruit. Don't when you're in the root stage. And what that means is, think about a tree that is growing. You need much more energy to create a strong foundation. Also, you have to put in the effort. Do your studies when you need to. Pass your exams when you need to. But also then so that you're not eating your fruit because you don't have any anyways. And so that you create a good foundation to bear good fruit, right? And when the time for the fruit comes, you will really have plenty to enjoy. But balance. Balance, basking in the sun as much as you're growing, the roots. So those are things we didn't do. And so you get in and then you grow up believing that, for example, the only way you become a whole human being is by being married.
Yes.
And many times then you hook up and you realize, oh God, this is
not my life.
And many times, sometimes it doesn't go the way you want to. And you're like, why did I even, close in my life to wait for this thing that is so difficult? So I tell people, balance, be a balanced human being, enjoy when you can, and develop all the intelligences. And when you get to the workspace, you realize that actually your book knowledge only gets you so far. So, for example, I'm a teacher. I teach at the university, and you realize that what gets you through a lecture isn't so much also what you know. There's that, but people's skills are important. Your ability to not make everybody nod off in slumber is a gift. So you have to really work out and be well-rounded for you to be able to actually be a successful human being. So spending time enjoying the arts is such a fundamental part of your life and part of your success. And I tell young women, and we are all dealing with all types of traumas. this African society is not easy at all.
At all. Yeah.
At all. So get people who walk that journey. The Bible does say that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So chances are that what you've gone through, somebody else has. I tell people, identify people you can talk to and who are willing to share their lives, because by mentorship, your learning curve doesn't have to be as long as mine was. What took me 5 years can take you 1 year, because you're learning from my pain points so that you navigate that space a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that you emphasize us being more holistic as people as opposed to being one-dimensional. Because I think at an individual level as Africans, we want to safeguard our culture without testing how viable it is to solve things outside of where we are. And that creates a good segue for me now to talk about policy, which is why we're here. You advocate so deeply for evidence-based policy.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So my foundational years in my work were about research and just understanding facts and figures.
Yes.
And I began to find out that that's useful because it gives you different knowledges about something, and you can approach an issue, a problem from different perspectives, but accurately.
Okay.
And that's important for policy. So policy is about creating a system and structure that helps resolve societal problems, right? So for example, if you have a community that believes it shouldn't take children to school, as a policymaker, you're saying education is important for the 21st century, and we create a society where all children go to school. So that provides a solution to this community, right? And so you have a basis in which you can then tell the society, or, educate the society or that particular community that taking children to school is important. So facts and figures become important in the sense that if then, let's say, you can convince this community why taking children to school is important, because they have their own legitimate reasons. And you could, for example, show them examples of when you have high school education, your generations become much more, can I say, developed, successful, than when you have children that are born of women who are illiterate or with primary school education. So those facts and figures enable you to prove something that can help this community come on board in terms of that, right? So it's important because also people experience a similar problem in very different ways. So for somebody sitting in, let's say, has a high-end job, education is very different, or going to school is very different from somebody who is maybe in a slum area. So facts and figures enable you to understand all those points of view, so that by the time you do policy, because policy is for society, and if this society is experiencing these things differently, it has to speak to everybody. And so facts and figures play a big role in terms of being able to be empathetic to those different situations. So classic example, I worked on a project that was looking at Kenya's inequality.
Okay.
And you began to see that if you were born in a place called Kotaluklo Bay, first of all, if you're born in Turkana, your chances of not going to high school are 56%.
Oh my goodness.
Just being born. But if you're from Kotaluklo Bay, that chance increases to 120%.
Oh my.
And that's, if another shocking statistic actually, is that if you look at data for the entire country, if you compare male-headed households and female-headed households, all female-headed households have less education compared to male-headed households. Like their counterparts, if it's Kotaluklo Bay male-headed versus female-headed, all female-headed households have lower high school education than male-headed households. It does that tells you something, that you need to empower female-headed households to actually be able to do something about. And then you can find out, why is it that it's consistent? It could be an issue of resources. It could be an issue of culture. It could be an issue of. So even when people say, oh, now we've, empowered the girl child so much than the male
I've heard
child.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, the data in some aspects is saying something different. And so data helps you to circumvent some of these biases, or also some of these narratives that don't have a basis, right? And it is true. So, for example, in a place like Central Province, it is true that the young man is disadvantaged. And it's because of a longer history of female-headed households. And therefore, you have a situation where people then learn to, there are dynamics there that need to be paid attention to, right? And so you may find, because of having data, you realize that in Central Province, you do have affirmative action, but for the male child. But in a place like Kotaluklo Bay and other places, you realize that the affirmative action is for the girl child. And so you're not putting policy blindly. You are actually doing very targeted, interventions. A very interesting story, again, because I do a lot of research, is I did some work on the Women Development Fund. It is the best managed fund among all the funds. And repayment rates, is at its 90s and so forth. But the most interesting thing is that when you then do facts and figures and you look at why was the fund established in the first place, is to try and get more women to have low interest loans that can get them to do businesses more, because a lot of them don't have collateral to go and get a bank loan. So then that means it was supposed to be an affirmative action fund to ensure that women get access to resources and to financing, and particularly poor women. But because of not targeting, and what is targeting? Targeting is saying not all women are the same. So you have different categories. If you just divide the country into different regions, some regions are wealthier than others. So you look at the poverty index. When women are younger, their ability to get collateral is much less than maybe older women, right? So you look at the age disaggregation. Then you say, okay, people who have ability and those who have a disability, there's a difference. So if you disaggregate it by disability levels, you realize that, okay, so if you actually do all those disaggregations and you then look at the fund, you realize that counties, the ones that are called rich counties, they disbursed almost 5 times more than the poor counties. And the poor counties got like a fifth of what they were supposed to get over a 10 period. So this fund that is actually supposed to be an equalizer is actually not an equalizer.
That is insane.
So if you audit the fund from a point of view of people borrowed and people returned money, it has done a fantastic job. But facts and figures are telling you that if the fund was supposed to empower women who are not empowered, it has actually
done the opposite.
And so facts and figures are, and doing policy from a point of view of research is amazing. It uncovers things that are, then it tells you, no, spend more money and more time training these women, and stop telling women that we work on the basis of who's able to get the money. Obviously, the more educated, the more well-to-do. Other ones who are informed have the confidence to come and ask for the money. But if the idea is to really empower, then spend more time with the younger people, with the people with disability in the poorer counties, training them and helping them to know how to get used to the fund. It may take a little more time, but eventually within 10 years, you will accomplish the purpose of the fund.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the approach that we need to have with regards to Africa's response to AI? Because you've given us a very comprehensive view of evidence-based policy, because I am worried about our response, because it almost feels like as a continent, we are always reactive to, I want to say, to the idea of what the world should be in another region. Like someone else is imagining that this is what I want the world to look like in 10 years. And we just have to create policies to respond, unfortunately. What do you think needs to be done?
Yeah, you're right in many ways that our policy-making process is very reactive to global standards. So AI is one of those, where if you look at Africa, we have all manner now of policies on AI. Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm afraid of is, first of all, we haven't really sat down to have a conversation about what is AI holistically, not amongst a few people who have access and exposure, but even to the grassroots level, what does it mean? Because for Africa, I mean, the difficulty is that we are at AI conversation, but a lot of people are at, I didn't have breakfast today.
That is true.
So it's when you talk to people, it's very difficult to navigate. And there's a disconnect between, gosh, I'm thinking about AI and I'm just trying to deal with basic necessities. So perhaps the conversation needs to be, how can Africa leapfrog, right? By using these things, but also linking that with addressing our basic necessities. And what I've often found is that we have good policies that are responsive, but only to a very small segment of society, but that is not relevant to the other to majority of people that are at the basic level. So that inequality is just out there. Obviously, there's need. The world is moving, and we don't live in isolation. So again, asking ourselves, how do we bridge that gap is an important question. So our policies are not so much, then shouldn't be so much about, oh, we want AI, and that's important, but we want AI, and how do we equalize? Those two conversations have to be in place. But now the big conversation is, oh, we're trying to be Singapore.
We are.
And you're like, okay, Singapore doesn't happen also in a vacuum. Singapore built brick by brick to where it is. So to what extent can we do that and get everybody on board and have access to that? So that, for example, at ECD level, then the other thing about policy, and particularly AI policy, is that it should be interlinked, right? AI doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is interlinked to education, to health, and so forth. So that if then we want to equalize and help everyone have access, you're beginning to think about how should we thinking about AI at ECD level. And what does it mean? What are the implications? So again, Africa's demographics is at the place where we have a lot of our population. I mean, we should be having labor-intensive conversations because we have many young people that need to be employed. So when we are having this discussion about AI also is going to be an interrupter of that labor-intensive conversation, because it is taking out all these labor-intensive jobs and bringing, trying to, make, even obliterate some of the jobs that we had gone to school to do. And then the question actually has to become, what does it mean for our demographics? And therefore, what solutions are fit for purpose for the demographics that we have? We're not having that conversation. We're having a conversation about how are we among the first to do an AI policy? Are we amongst the first to be ICT compliant? Well, that is good. It's not enough in itself. So there's that disconnect. And my view is that we need to really change the conversation. Yeah, people are ahead of us in many ways. I mean, they've taken this tool, and whether it's through their phones and tried to make something out of it, whether it's through social media and so forth. And it can be very empowering, also very disadvantaging. So just an example. You've seen, I once watched a clip where this young person took a shoe and just figured out that when you walk, you generate kinetic energy and that it can be used to charge a phone. I'm
Oh
like,
my
yo,
goodness.
that
What?
is so amazing in a rural area because you walk a lot in the farm. So if you're wearing this shoe that maybe has a port, in the evening you can charge your phone. I mean, that is such a relevant innovation for Africa. And I wish we could then concentrate on empowering many more such innovations. Unfortunately, we don't invest in such can I say, innovations for our young people. So we'll talk about it, but we'll expect someone from the West to come and fund
it,
such an innovation. So what happens is that innovation is appropriated by big companies. And when it is appropriated by big companies, who reaps the benefits? Yes, it is not us. An interesting, an inverted example is, and I don't know whether you've ever watched a documentary called Social Dilemma.
No.
The Social Dilemma is a documentary that's done by all these creators of social media. And they say, they give you a whole conversation about why they created social media in the first place. It was a marketing tool. And the marketing tool was then to try and link big business with advertising. Yeah. So, but they began to realize that the social media had unintended consequences. So you have all the same people who take it. I mean, you do your Instagram and you put all these glamorous pictures about yourself, but nobody teaches us how to psychologically deal with this. So you put out a picture there, and in this documentary, this young girl takes a selfie and she puts it out there, and she's beautiful. And she gets like 99 comments of how good she looks. But this one comment says, "You have big ears." And on account of that one comment, she completely loses perspective of this 99 comments that say that you look good.
You look good, yeah.
And she wants to commit suicide. She goes into depression. And one of the things that I'm alive to is the fact that we're not spending enough time to understand what are the implications of this thing to everyone, to society, to young people, to families. I mean, just think about the number of people whose relationships have just gone south because of those unintended consequences. And so one of the things I'm alive to as an educator is the education system that we've had was to teach us how to learn. What to learn. But we need to flip that, and we need to teach people how to learn. And that education system was relevant then because information was not as available. So you needed to show people what to learn. But now information is pretty much at everybody's fingertips. And now I don't need to come and have a conversation with you about what is a red dress, because you can easily Google that and get it. It is really a discussion about how do you navigate all this information and get wisdom, get knowledge, get understanding. Because it's interesting that in this 21st century, we have the most information, but we have the most number of foolish people.
Yeah.
So it's such an oxymoron, in that sense. And so if education actually could also get that quickly and flip it so that we begin working with young people and with ourselves also on how to learn, how to process information in a way that empowers us and doesn't enslave us. That will be so that's the flip side, and we don't have no one has figured out that part of policy. Yeah.
What would you say about the phrase, though, that we need African solutions to African problems? Because as an IR student, I'm often torn because I think African solutions sometimes they can be useful for small populations. Now, if we want to advise for policy, say at a large scale, if I want to write the UN protocol on something someday, I can't just have an African perspective saying that we need African solutions because we're not represented at the table. But then on the flip side, the protocols that I have seen internationally are not representing the solutions that we need. Climate change, for example, we need adaptation strategies more than we need keep planting trees. We don't need that. So for me, I want to know what you think about that view.
Okay. So I draw a lesson from China. Before China became a global, and maybe not player, but a global icon in many ways, before it started influencing society, it had to figure out its own solutions. And so they started at the very local level to test ideas and to grow ideas, so that by the time they're coming to the global stage, they have a way of doing things that they can give to the world and say, this is another alternative. Unfortunately, Africa is like everybody's playing ground, in the sense that I don't know why we don't. I feel like it's a colonization of our minds in many ways, so that we are also, we have, and again, take ancient civilizations, started from Africa. Right? If you think about Egypt, and you think about some of the architecture they had, Africa grown. But in some way that was appropriated, but we somehow don't feel confident in trying out our solutions and growing those and sending it to the world as solutions for the world, so that people find an alternative in what we have to give. It's almost like we're always looking for blessings, and we never take the time to actually grow our own. And my view is, if we just stopped with the world, I mean, I'm not saying let's ignore the world. I'm just saying that as much as we want to get all these UN protocols, what's the African way of doing things? And if we took time to grow our own solutions, and I think M-Pesa has been one of the most successful, where you have really a solution that works for us, for the majority of people that are in the informal sector. And saying, look, you have something, because banks never worked for us. I can tell you, before the advent of mobile banking, do you know how many people were banked? Like in the history of Africa, 26%. 26 for as long as banking was in Africa. For however long it was 26%. Mobile phones come, and formal banking of access to formal financial systems grows to 90-something% within 2 to 3 years. What is the disconnect there? That you have this solution that actually is alive to African realities of informality, of the duality between formal and informal, right? And therefore, if we had the courage to just invent those things and fund it ourselves, that's the other problem. When we get other people to fund it, it becomes their product, and they do whatever it is that they want. Now, the world is catching up with mobile banking, right? And so if we did a lot of those things by experimenting what works for our context, funding it and growing it and believing in it, we even if it doesn't go out to the world, we have 54 countries that can adopt it and can grow, and we have a market for it. And so if we did that as Africa, that would be good. One of the biggest issues is the fact that we have so much corruption at the government level that people are so busy amassing wealth for themselves and not creating solutions for Africa. So what makes it challenging is that then even policy is made to align with that dysfunction much more than really provide solutions. And so it's really to clean up and to believe in our own product and grow that product. And we will find that we will provide solutions that can be used out there. Then we can have the muscle to have a voice in the UN circles or in other circles. Right now, if you look at the global shift as a student of IR, there is now a proper, competition between West and the East. Why? The East is able to come because it has financial muscle, because it has a solution it is bringing to the global stage. And I think Africa cannot grow if all we do is receive and not give. Yeah.
Wow. So at a policy level, are you saying that, especially with regards to AI, you think that the best way for us to move forward is for us to have an African way of dealing with AI, as opposed to saying, well, the West has said this, therefore let us just adopt.
Yeah, and the thing is this, actually, fun fact, a lot of AI is trained right here in Kenya.
No.
I kid you not, right here in Kenya. So that's the thing, that as long as we are doing it for other people's technology, it is their technology, right? I once, a long time ago, I'm sure it's corrected now, I asked Siri, I was in a conference, and I was trying to make a point, and I just took out my phone and I asked Siri, who is Jesus Christ? And Siri said, I'm sorry, I don't know. And then I said, who is, Mohammed, or who is, like any other, and it gave a whole narrative around it. And I said, my issue isn't religion. I wasn't trying to push that. I was just saying, for a continent where 90% of people claim that this is their way of belief, this very fundamental tool has just said, we don't know. It means the creator of that tool didn't find it in themselves. That thing wasn't important. That conversation wasn't important for them to put in the AI. So the point is, as long as that technology belongs to other people, they will fashion it to their interests. And so the question becomes, what is it that we can build for ourselves? Or what is it that we can adapt from other pieces but make our own? And that is important, because if we don't do that, what then happens is that we will play other people's tunes. And so, yes, I am saying that. And of course, we do live in a global village. There are many things that we have access to. And like I said at the beginning, Africa can leapfrog. We don't have, they've taken so long to get there, right? But we can leapfrog. But we have to be so intentional about it. We have to create policies for it. We have to have an agenda as Africans for ourselves. So as long as we are playing to somebody else's agenda, but like I said, it's also not that the commitment has to be to walk the long road. So this thing of cutting corners, look at the debt now, some of the policy choices we've made, generations of kids that are not born, going to be paying for it. So the question becomes, what can we do? And the reason I also do foresight is that we need to make decisions now that are going to be fruitful in the future. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And part of that discussion is just to say, what do we want as Africans? And what is the commitment to actually go the long haul to make sure it happens? So Singapore, for example, when you read their stories, they had to deal with corruption so deliberately. People were shot. You are a corrupt minister. You are taken to the beach and kill you. Why? To just ingrain. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we should do that because there are human rights violations here. I'm just saying, what price are we willing to pay to walk the long haul so that we build something fundamental that can get Africa back on track? Yeah.
That was beautiful. I think for me, hopefully someday I'll become a policy writer. My stance on this is that it's difficult to write policies that are adequate for solving African problems when you're still attached to the benefits of getting funding that will just distort the policies that you need in Africa. So I think we're too attached a little bit to the benefits of missing out on our own way, So what advice would you give to someone like me who aspires to be a policy writer someday? What needs to be done differently? What am I doing wrong? What could I be doing wrong as a young person as well?
All right. I have a very radical answer for you. I think the first mistake we make is to think that everything that is put out there is for our benefit as well. In the sense that everyone else is working out their interests and we play along. Actually, I'll give you an example. And it's a TED Talk that you can find. Where this lady used to work for World Bank. And she said her boss told her that he was very sad when he got the Asian portfolio. And when he got the Asian portfolio, is because when he goes to get countries to get loans, the Asian countries will read every dot and every cross on every T. And they will ask questions. They're not signing until they balance the equation. Africans will ask, how much are we getting? And on account, it doesn't matter what the conditionality is, they sign on it. And he says he would meet his quota of loans like that and play golf the rest of the year. What am I trying to say? And many times, I think we don't question also a lot of this, what is at the global stage and to what extent is it disadvantaging Africa? You see, there are many rules of the game, by the way, which we don't question and which disadvantage Africa. Just look at Congo, you'll get all your answers. Look at Somalia, you'll get all your answers, right? And so if we, for example, even united as Africa and began to really discuss what are the terms and conditions we are also playing at the global stage, it's important. What, again, the price we have to pay, but also how are we funding our own work? That those become very important conversations to go to the stage. So that, yes, and I do agree with you, as long as we are benefiting too much and not questioning what is the cost of that benefit, we remain disadvantaged. And so it's to ask those fundamental questions. I think as a student of IR, you would know a few countries are now beginning to say, wait a minute, no. Of course, the world also plays a very rough game. Some people are assassinated because of having those stands. But I don't think it's undoable. I think if you really become decisive, we can really make Africa, get on the right trajectory. We have the resources, we have the people. Yeah, the global conditions do not necessarily favor us. Look at the prices of some of the goods, that we have. But we also remain, the rules of the game are such that they also remain hooked. Like through our debt, we are not getting out easily. We are literally held, by what? And we are not getting out easily because we've compromised too much. So there's a lot of stuff we need to clean out for us to even be able to have the muscle to say here and no more and to begin to build that. So, for example, we need to cut. So I look at just this country and you look at just the amount of resources that go to waste. The former president said we lose about 2 million Kenya shillings every day.
No.
Every day on corruption. And I believe so strongly that that's an understatement. If you look at how much money is wasted, like on parks, on salaries we can't afford, if we just decided as a country that we need to tighten our belts, it's not just us who are earning a mega salary, surely that should be overtaxed. It should be like we need to clean up at that level so that we are not hemorrhaging and so that we pay that money back. So that when we are not indebted to anyone, then we can say this is how we are moving forward. So I'm agreeing with you in a long-winded way, and I'm saying we have a lot of cleanup to do from the past, but we have a lot of hard decisions to make.
Someone said to me the other day that a big part of unlearning is not just disproving things that this is true and this is not true. Sometimes it's about you saying, well, this could be true, but it's not working for me.
Yes.
Like it can work in Singapore, but it's not working for me. And I think that is a big part of the approach we need to have with regards to even AI policy itself, that it might not even work for us, we have not studied it enough and we don't know at this point. So what are some parting words that you could have for our audience here?
So as a former student of USIU, it is a good school. I know there's a period of time where we lost a lot of can I say our legitimacy as a school because of the leadership and management issues. But I guess that's coming back now, and I think it's a place, it's a community of a global community and it's a wonderful place to learn, and it has wonderful facilities, and that's something I would want for any child to experience. I think my second big one is when it comes to policy, it's important for us to be able to pay the price, to go in it knowing that success doesn't come easy. We have to pay the price. And I know we're in an age where also people don't want to suffer.
Yeah.
They say, I'd rather cry in a whatever. Lamborghini.
In a Lamborghini.
Yes.
In a Bentley.
Than be happy on a bicycle.
Yeah.
But I do say that, trust me, a bicycle is good for you in as far as exercise is concerned.
Yeah.
But also when it is your bicycle,
that's yours.
It's you're empowered more than when you're being given, figuratively. And if you think about policy, I think by taking loans we are laughing in a Lamborghini, but the owner of the Lamborghini keeps harassing us. And so we need to be happy in riding our own bicycles and building from there, because a Lamborghini is not out of reach when you build a firm foundation. And so my parting words is we need to learn that nothing comes easy. We have to pay the price. We have to walk the journey. Let's be rooted so that we can eat the fruit. But let's not, in the season of rooting, let's not eat our fruit. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
you.
I
wish we could continue with this interview, but I think everyone watching this will learn that life has its own process, and trying to cut corners, whether you are a policymaker or you are that high school student.
Exactly.
It's not going to help anyone. So thank you for your time. And I truly hope that as our audience, this episode has resonated with you. I'll catch you in the next one.